One. Shalom, good afternoon from Jerusalem, Israel. This is Mr. Lowell Joseph Gallen, founder of the Root and Branch Association Limited. Welcome to episode 3 of our new monthly Root and Branch Association Ancient Roots Mothering seminars, hosted by co-hosts Mrs. Chava Dagan, Mrs. J. Rivkah Asoulin, and Mrs. Gilla Weiss. Chava and Rivkah are from Israel, and Mrs. Weiss is from the very free state of Florida, God bless it, and its governor. And we welcome their friend for today's session, Carole A., also from the land of Israel. And now, without further ado, I hand over the program to our hostesses.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us. I am so excited. We've never had a guest on our show, and we couldn't have asked for a better first guest. So I'd like to introduce you all to my dear friend, Carole, and now our dear friend, Carole. Carole has been working as a midwife, or I should say began midwifery back in right around 1980, and made Aliyah to Israel from the United States in 1983. She tells a great story that when she got off the plane and they asked her what her occupation was, she said home birth midwife, and they said, "What was that?" There's no such thing. Carole spent some time in the Peace Corps in Malaysia. As a teen, she started getting interested in various women's rights and women's health issues, and that continued during her time in the Peace Corps in Malaysia. When she returned, she worked for the Dartmouth Medical Center that had a natural family-centered childbirth station. They also ran a daycare. She was involved with both of those for a time, and that's how she started to understand that her calling was in midwifery. She has a degree in chemistry from American University in Washington, D.C., and an amazing story, and hopefully that will trickle out as we move through tonight's program. So welcome to Carole. I'm going to flip it over to Chava, and she's going to tell us a little bit about her experience with being a pregnant lady, and some of the ideas and feelings that that come up, I think, for all of us when we're being asked to do something that we're just not comfortable with.
Okay, so hi everyone. Thanks for joining us. This is so much fun. We're so excited to have Carole on our show. So this story I kind of tell to a lot of people when I'm getting them, kind of introducing them to the idea of following your intuition or reconnecting to that mothering that we have inside of us, because we do have it inside of us. This is a God-given intuition and a gift, and we were born with this innate ability to mother, to birth, to take care of our children. But through, progress and all of these things, we kind of have gotten away from that, and now we give it over to the doctors. We give it over to everyone else in our families, our sisters, our grandmas, our mothers, telling us what to do. So my first child is I was pregnant, and I was a new wife, I guess I should say. And I didn't know anything, right? But I just followed along with, like everyone else, whatever people told me. I got pregnant. Now I'm supposed to go to the doctor, and he's supposed to tell me what's happening, if I'm okay, if the baby's okay. I'm not ever supposed to ask myself or feel myself or pay attention to how the baby is reacting inside of me. Nothing like that. I'm just supposed to go to the doctor. So I did. And the first thing they put me through was this gestational diabetes test, where they put you kind of into this side room that's kind of a coffee room for the doctors and nurses, I guess. I mean, you're like there with no one and nothing. They put you at a table, tiny little closet room. and they give you like 3 full cups of sugar. Even as a brand new wife, I knew that I would never drink something like that, even as a non-pregnant person. Why would anyone down 3 whole cups of sugar and just sitting there in one sitting? And no one's there watching you or saying, how do you feel? Or maybe that's enough. No, they give you 3 cups of sugar. They say, drink this. We'll talk afterwards. So I did, even though intuitively I just said, this is wrong. This is so weird. And after the first cup, I could feel the sugar just building up in me. And it was like, what's this possibly going to do to my baby? But whatever, I did it because the doctor told me to. I finished off, if not all of it, most of it, because I was supposed to. And then I felt horrible immediately after, just horrible. And I could feel the baby felt horrible. I mean, it was the worst experience ever. So I go back into the doctor and I said, okay, I did it. Now what? And then he told me, I don't remember if it was a urine test, a blood test, I don't even remember anymore. It was so traumatic. And he sent me off. And I went out of the office and my husband was waiting in the car. I got in the car and I just started crying. I couldn't control this trauma that had been happening to me. And I finally just released it. And I could see that these people, system, this doctor specifically, had no compassion, no idea of what he just put me through and the baby. No idea. I didn't care. He was looking at the numbers on the tests. And I think so many of us go through this and many similar experiences. And then we're like, well, you know, it wasn't fun. It wasn't good. It wasn't any, and deep inside, we know this intuitively is so wrong for us and for our baby. But it's like, okay, now what's next? And then the doctor tells us to do some other weird blood test. I don't know, weird things. And we continued going along that path and we go home, we get a little pat on our shoulder. Good work. You did such a good job from our aunts and our sisters and everyone in our family. You're going along with what the doctor's telling you to do. And so we say, okay, I guess this is the path that we're supposed to take, even though inside the whole time, something's telling you this is not right. So it was, for me, it was this decision of the split. Okay, do I continue down this path, which so far has been so against everything inside of me? Or do I go off on my own and not know what I'm supposed to do because I had no books, I had no clue, I hadn't even gotten into the mindset of being pregnant yet, and what am I going to do? And then not get those little taps on the shoulder anymore. Good job. Now I'm off on my own, and everyone's like, no, right? But there was something so strong in me that I could never see myself going back. I could never see myself taking advice from this man who just told me to drink 3 cups of sugar. There's something wrong with that. As a doctor, even, doesn't he know what sugar does to the bloodstream? I couldn't see myself going back. And I cried and I cried and I cried the entire way home. I cried. And my husband was like, what is wrong with you? You just went in for the regular, normal test that all the pregnant ladies go through. What's wrong? Why are you reacting so badly? But I knew right then and there that I was not going back. And that was the end of it for me. I would have to find a way to look into home birth and, midwifery and all of these different things that I had to learn from that moment. But I knew never to go down that path. And that was the decision I made. And since then, thank God, my intuition has gotten stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger, because each time I actually listened to that little voice that said, no, I don't think so. And I think that so many of us just take the other path because we're supposed to. And then that's where the division starts happening, and our separation from our babies, from our bodies, from our pregnancy, from all of those things. So for me, that story kind of sums it up for a lot of people. And I just like to share that with you because we've all been there, and we've all had to make those decisions along the way, little tiny decisions along the way. But for me, that was the big first one.
Why are we willing to compromise? Why are women willing to do this?
Even a bigger question, why are we in the face of a society, like a medical model that is based on where in the medical background are they have the idea that all this sugar into a woman is a way to prove if she's healthy or not? Where have we go so askewed in our validating our health and find our inner wisdom that I'm sure the doctor that gave you that went to medical school, learned and thought that everything that they're doing is coming to you from goodness and wholeness. But I don't think the concept of, when working with pregnant women, there are very few things that are stopping and saying, what do you know? Where are you coming from? Where is your inner chokhmah, your inner wisdom? Where is, like, yes, there is really a thing of gestational diabetes. Is there a way to diagnose this in a better way? Is there a way to prove it? Is there a way to see it? No one is stopping it. It is the acceptable, it has been the acceptable way. And we as women, I've had women come into me with this whole list of week this, go here, go there, go this, do this, like 3 different places to try and what you should do when you are pregnant. Nobody is really coordinating it. Nobody is sitting there turning the woman into and strengthening her inner self. And where are we going with why isn't there more of a misgeret, more of a framework of how to say healthy, that we feel healthy? Oh, I'm strong, or I'm not strong, I'm tired, or I'm feeling this. Where do we sit there and say, it's okay to be like that at this point, or that is a level where it's not okay. And it's all been taken away from us as women. Where are we turning into? Pregnancy and birth is an incredible place to strengthen each woman in her own fabric, which is probably how I got into pregnancy and childbirth. That there were so many things that were saying, no, you can't do that. You can't think that, you can't be like that. We have to always be able, just on advertisements, we should always be able to, at any time of our month, any time of our life, go out and have a fantastic game of tennis. And nobody should know where we are functioning or how we are functioning. We should always be the same. And it's like, but we're not. There's no zchut, there's no acceptance, there's no ability to, in the greater world, to say that we are cyclical human beings, that we are always in a change of pattern, that where can we bring up our inner wisdom? And the opposite of where do we bring up our inner wisdom is to totally indoctrinate every little girl with incredible fear and dislike of our bodies, of our knowledge, of our what we are doing. Incredible, especially, here we are at Pesach, and we're all looking at how we're going to change, how we're coming out of a Mitzrayim, out of a bondage. How do we find a liberation? I think as women in our pregnancies and in our bodies, we are always looking at where is a liberation, where is a freedom, what do we clean out? What do we say, have we said, okay, enough of? I think this is, personally, I'm coming from Pesach cleaning and the Pesach purge, and thinking, what are we purging? Where are we coming? What messages are we incorporating? What can we get to, and then say, I misspeak. I'm not listening to that one any longer. That is out of my book. That is out of my life. We do it physically, and now we're doing it mentally. We pregnancy and childbirth. Every time we try and clean up to find new wisdom. I found that there's anybody, I can easily get into stories with women, and I could meet a woman, and with 3 minutes, my husband will say, how did you get her talking about her birth so quickly? These are important things. These are places where we have been able to see ourselves, to feel ourselves, to find different wisdom. And when given that choice, we always look back. I mean, I could still look back at, oh, I have a picture of this birth that when my son was born 31 and a half years ago, and see how when he looked at the other kids came in after the birth, and he looked at him, it was like, shoot, the gang's here. What it means for that little person to connect with the whole group. We're taught like that baby at birth is this fragile thing. That is actually a little gang member who can't wait to get out and be part of them. We're not taught that that's one of the incredible keys that we have. They, you see how they're responding to their fathers, we're not taught that. We're not taught to rely on our inner selves. We're taught to go in and say, how am I? Do I have gestational diabetes? Am I toxemic? What does that mean? Oh, my baby is a little bit off center. What does it mean? We're taught to be a time bomb waiting to happen. We're taught that our cycles are off. We can sit there and say, somebody can criticize us. You're just being emotional. Well, I think our emotions are given up to us. They're mataname Hashem. They're a gift from Hashem. We have to be sensitive to the world around us, to the people inside of us, to our children growing up. We are constantly modulating, whether it's close or from afar, what is going on. And we're not encouraged or given credit for it. And it's with our pregnancy and childbirth that is a time of incredible strengthening to sort of say, I knew that, I know that.
Maybe we can compare and contrast a little bit. So the setup for most women, like what Chava was talking about, is you think you're pregnant, but you don't know. The only way to know is to get a test. And you've got to go to Big Pharma to get the test at the drugstore, or go to your doctor where he gets the test from Big Pharma. And then you take the test through your urine or through your blood or whatever, and then you know. Now, if you do it at home, you still don't know. You're likely pregnant, but you got to go to your doctor to make sure that you really are pregnant. And the doctor can do the exact same urine test that you took at home. But when the doctor says that you're pregnant, then you are. Now, we don't know when you're due, because you're due based on a calendar. But really, we're not due based on a calendar. We're due to give birth based on when we ovulated and conceived the child, which for every woman varies greatly. Okay. And then we need to kind of move along, because now to get the dates, we need an ultrasound, because we might be wrong. We might be off. We can't be trusted about when we ovulated, especially if it's outside of the 28-day cycle that their wheel's on. So we go and we get the sonogram, And then, oh my gosh, there's no heartbeat. You got to come back next week because we got to make sure there's a heartbeat, because there really should be a heartbeat at this point or that point, or fill in an arbitrary date here. And if there's no heartbeat, some women are told that they should have a DNC or induce an abortion because the baby's gone, there's no heartbeat. And then they go and they find out right before that, turns out there is a heartbeat. That baby was just developing in its own way, like all babies actually do, not based on the textbook that the doctor said. How many women have I had come to me that had stories like that? It's not so rare, sadly. And it goes on and on and on with the gestational diabetes and so on and so forth, all the way up into birth, which every woman, we've said this in several interviews, has a thank God the doctor saved me story for their birth story. They saved me, they saved my baby. It was an emergency, I was saved, I was saved, I was saved, I was saved. But everyone has the story, and not everyone, it's hard to believe for me that everyone really needed saved. So now I want to think a little bit about what was it like for our ancient ancestors to give birth? What was it like for Sarah, Rivkah, Rachel, Leah, Dvorah, Hannah, okay, all the way up until the advent of Big Pharma and the Western medical model, which incidentally is still pretty new. So we only have to go back, what, 100 years? It's not that far. And so what was going on then? You know, there's this Torah that tells us the women gave birth so fast, it was before the midwives could get there, and Mitzrayim, that's how all these Jewish babies got saved. What was going on? What did midwifery look like? What did it look like to be pregnant and give birth? I'll throw it over, maybe Gilla wants to jump in.
I'd love to. And you know, I would also like to connect that, Carole. You said, your husband says, how do you get a woman to talk about her birth so quick? You can find a 90-year-old, and in 5 minutes, she'll remember details of her birth. She may not recognize her family members, but she remembers what she felt giving birth. It's the stories, it's all of our stories. We live this, and this shapes us as women, it shapes us as mothers. Our births are, the stories are inside of us. And 100 years ago, 200 and 1,000 years ago, these are the stories that were kept alive and passed from generation to generation. The chokhmah you spoke about, Carole, the wisdom is something that us, and I'm looking, you know, I'm older, but it doesn't matter. Our generation from about the 40s, 50s, post-World War II, maybe even before, our generations are part of the broken chain because we stopped receiving this wisdom because our mothers and grandmothers and great-grandmothers were already part of a system. And this conditioning has been going on for over 100 years. And the conditioning is fear-based. Fear-based, and again, I know I say this often, but the difference is that 1,000 years ago, 100 and 200, we're led to believe that most women died in childbirth and most infants did not survive beyond childhood. And if you look at the math and you look at the statistics, it's wrong. We need to go back and say, celebrate. How did my grandmother or great-grandmother have so many children and survive? How did all these uncles and great-grandparents survive in remote places? These are the wisdom gems that we need to reclaim. We're told some of them black and white in the Torah, and they're just dismissed as if nothing. Yet the sensation of the media are focusing on one story in Turkey or Australia or Ethiopia. It doesn't matter. The whole world will hear a home birth went wrong or there was a death. Yet if you go and you look up the statistics of today, infant mortality and maternal mortality in the USA, for example, it is dismal. It's today more than 30 behind some countries that have way less technology than us. The numbers are terrible. We should be crying and shouting. Yes, we are lacking this knowledge. We were conditioned since birth about what we call bubamaises or sipurei safta. If our grandmother told us stories of her birth, we would turn around and say, they don't do that anymore. We're progressive. We've got it. And the truth is, we don't got it. We're missing. And we're missing these gems of wisdom that were passed down. Most women that I work with have no idea when they ovulate. They need to go, like Rivkah said, to the doctor, like Chava said, when am I ovulating? They need technology to tell them when they're ovulating. Most young girls have no idea about their cycles. We need to be part of that. And when I say we, I mean every single one of us, all the mothers, all the sisters, all the aunts, all the grandmothers. We need to celebrate this as it was in ancient times.
I think as young women, first off, conventional educational system drastically fails preparing our children for the future. How's that for a nice way of saying? Not only as like adults responsible for families, for women, and responsible for our children, for knowing our bodies, for attunement to what's going on, it just fails. So there is a lot of education that needs to be given to females, males. Like, we're just not teaching survival skills, any sort of survival skills. It's sort of sad. When a woman is pregnant, and I was thinking about what you were saying, if as Jewish women, anytime that a doctor looks at a religious Jewish woman and does not say, when was the last time you went to the mikvah, and says, when was your last period? That person is not seeing them. That is not your healthcare provider. That is not your healthcare provider. If they really want to know dates and what dates have to say, I luckily have a textbook, a midwifery textbook from 1894. There is no post dates. There's no idea of post dates. It's a new concept. Like, I'm really appreciative to have this textbook to say, this is all new. This is just something we have created. Yes, there are things that can go on as you get to post dates, and there is a possibility. Are women learning about bell curves? About, a few beforehand and a few afterwards? Why after you go after your dates, you suddenly become a time bomb? You're not a time bomb. You're post dates. You're a bell curve. Let's talk about statistics. Like, you're concerned about it. You're a healthcare provider, and you want to say, okay, how's your baby moving? Are there any changes? What's going on? There are many other cues. Women know. They have an understanding.
Carole, people are shocked when they say, wait a minute. I mean, people are blown away. Wait a minute. You could be post dates and your practitioner could just ask you, do you feel your baby moving? How's your baby moving? What are the movements like? And that could be an indication of your baby's health post dates.
Look at, I once had a birth in an ambulance, and in this drive, you're just sort of like, you're around like this, and there's, we're coming in over an hour. There were indications of whatever we needed to transport. And there's no way to listen to that baby to get a really good knowing. So you ask the mother, how's your baby doing? The ambulance driver was like, you mean the baby responds? Yeah, the baby and mother won. we're not given credit for that. We're not even taught, like, if you go in for prenatal, like, how's your baby? Oh, I don't know. Ask your baby. Like, put your hand on your baby. Ask, they respond. Their baby wants you as much as you want their baby. Have you had something really frightening? Has something gone on in your pregnancy? How does your baby respond to it? The baby is, we look for a shlema with the world, a wholeness, a totality of our being. We're looking for contentment. We all are born into the world looking to find a contentment with ourselves, with our society, with our family, with our spouse, with our husbands, with our children, with everything. When we're pregnant, we have that shlemut. We have that oneness. It is, what a kavod, what an honor to be there.
Now, what about, sorry to interrupt again, but what I would be, if I were in the audience going, now, wait a minute. How do you know how your baby's feeling when you're scared or you're upset? What if you're just making it up in your head and you don't really know? Does anyone want to comment about that? Or maybe give an example in life where we do that all the time?
I can talk about, I know my first one was super sensitive. I would go into a meeting and somebody would upset me and he would just be like, his movements would change. The next one, she was just known as 10 legs and she's like, and there was nothing to it. She's sort of like that today. Was she sensitive? Was she not sensitive? It wasn't one of the predominant things in her. The third one had lots of trauma going on, and there was something about her that was like, keep it. I don't want it. Like, didn't want to know. And she's still like it. Something bothers me. Okay, that's her. They're all different. We're all different.
Sarah Hannah Silverstein said in a lecture for Ancient Roots Israel, it was so amazing because she was talking about intuition. And this is, of course, what we're trying to help women cultivate. And so she said, have you ever, someone's walked into a room and you just get a feeling about that person, just a vibe like, I know I'm like that person. You really connect to that person, you just feel it before they even open their mouths. Or I should be careful about this person. I should have my guard up. Something's telling me that I should be very cautious. Those are all different types of intuition that we have in a business meeting, on the street, at a store, in our daily interactions that we believe, and we adjust our reactions accordingly. We are using intuitive wisdom, but in this specific area, we've been told not to use intuitive wisdom and that we have to have some kind of external authority give us the answers. What does a birth look like when a woman is pregnant? Or, I was thinking when Carole was talking about what Carole told me about when a baby's born and the hearing test. What do you tell a mother when she's concerned and trying to decide whether or not to take her baby into a hearing test to know if he can hear?
I would have her look at her baby and see who that person is. It's you can't make that definitive thing. You can say, there was a woman who gave birth and wanted to check her baby and was not happy with the check. And over the phone, we went through like a total body check so that she could get to a point and say, my baby's okay. She knew that. These are skills. I wouldn't say little skills. These are big skills. These are important skills. These are incredible skills. Why aren't we learning that? And if we do say, and we want to have somebody else check, so have somebody else check.
You also tell women,
I need
make
to
a
move
sound, make a noise. Yeah. Does your baby turn his head? You know, when someone walks in the room and a door slams, is there a reaction? Like there are other ways to check for those things. Maybe Chava or Gilla want to comment about some of the other questions that may be coming up when it comes to birth and how our ancestors gave birth. What did they need to give birth?
Yeah.
Oh, I
So,
hear
you know, I wanted to just share a quick story about how we know about our baby. And with my fourth child, my daughter, and this is 26 years ago, so there wasn't, you know, spinningbabies.com and internet, you know, this was 1996, was just starting. And I was caught in between what we call practices, midwife who, long story short, I went and saw a student midwife for a while. And this was my fourth pregnancy. And I felt the baby's head under my left rib. And I knew that this baby's head was next to my heart. And every time I told this midwife, this baby's head is next to my heart, and I feel it under my rib, she said, no, that's her bottom. Well, that's the baby's bottom. We didn't know it was her. And long story short, when I went into labor was different. And I felt this soul. I felt this person in my heart. It was very uncomfortable. There was a head under my left rib. And the baby she was my heart. So when I went into labor was different. And baby's head was next to my heart. And I called a friend midwife who was not a midwife at that point. And she came after I said, something is so different. This baby's head is by my rib. And can you check me so that I can know what's going on, you know, because I know. And she came over as a friend and she said, your baby's head is as you've said all along. In fact, there's a little foot, you have a footling breech. And I ended up delivering her in the hospital, but I did deliver her and I delivered her my way. And she was a footling breech. And for whatever reason, she needed to be close to my heart and she needed to protect her head because at age 13, it turned out she had a tumor. It was a benign tumor, but it caused a brain hemorrhage. And when we saw the surgeon, he said, this has been with her since birth and maybe before. And when we heard that, I knew she put her head next to my heart and she needed to protect her head for whatever reason. And that was just, but I was told even by midwives, no, but I knew, you know, and that's the conditioning. That's the conditioning, and the conditioning is fear. 1,000 years ago, that would have been nurtured. The women in the community would have known, we're going to prepare for a breech birth. We're going to talk to your baby. We're going to cocoon you. We're going to support you. We're going to use different positions. We're going to use herbs. We're going to heal whatever the baby needs or you need. And we're going to empower you because you're going to birth your baby tushy first or feet first. And this child of mine, when she went to school, told her teacher, I was born feet first. And that's who she is. Her feet are on the ground. Her feet are on the ground. You can't move them. So yes, we know. We just are trained not to listen to our voices.
It's totally it. It's like, what would birth look like? I don't know if they would prepare for a breech birth because some babies just come like that. Some babies come like that. There are skills, there are movements that we have learned, you know, what do we know? a woman left up to herself. I just heard it, a woman was telling me she had to wait for 4 contractions for the doctors to come in. She felt like she was wanting to push. She was wanting to push. It took over 4 contractions for the doctors to come in and say, oh, you can push. Like, seriously?
Yeah, I see that all the time, even in home birth with midwives sometimes.
Oh, first off, every time you hear a story about when a woman tells you her story, and then she says, and I went in, and then I was 3 centimeters, and then I was this, and then I was 7 centimeters, then I was 8 centimeters. Somebody's putting their hands where they're not supposed to be. There's no reason. There's
Yes. Yes.
We lost Carole, but I know she'll be right back and we can take it on from there. Gilla, you know a lot about this. Gilla attends births as well. Why the vaginal checks? Most women, you've got to have a vaginal check. How do you know how far along you are? How do you know how much time is left in your labor, right?
It's a violation. It's violating our bodies. It's control. It's fear. When you have a woman who's pushing, she's pushing because baby is there. And when you have a midwife or a doctor who says, you cannot push now, I need to check where baby is, or I need to check. You know, I've been at so many births where there are so many respectful midwives women will say, I feel like pushing, can I push? And she'll say, go ahead. It's your body. It's your baby, you know. And then on the other hand, you'll have others who say, no, you can't push. Anybody who's had a baby knows when that baby is about to crown and is descending the pelvis, you go stop pushing. You don't stop life. It's so hard. It's so hard. And it's against everything.
And there are negative consequences. If your body's telling you to push and you're not pushing, and my sister told a story, which is on the Nettles and Pins website, Chava's website, about being told that she couldn't push, you know, and having this baby kind of stuck there, creating problems. So the interference actually creates the emergency that the medical personnel then needs to save you from. And then the women, the mothers say, well, I was saved from this. You know,
right. Yes.
What? But wasn't everyone dying in childbirth, Gilla and Chava? Wasn't everyone dying? I mean, how could women give birth alone? That's the one story. The other story is, you know, in insert name of third world country here, women are out in the fields working and they squat down and give birth and wrap the baby on their back and carry right on. So what is it? What's going on here? Now, we 3 have had natural childbirth. What is natural childbirth? And Lowell, if you can make Carole a co-host again, we would really appreciate it. Thank you. So what about that?
What about that? Childbirth is whatever it is. It is not, there is, you're given a blank book, a magical, wonderful blank book. It is going to start however, it is going to progress. There is no right, like the idea of timing or waiting or like, it is each woman's particular story. We have to always watch it because we have to look at the unfortunate statistics of, there's a lot of abuse on women, a lot of baggage that we're carrying, whether it's fears, stories, experience. So to be with a woman at this point in pregnancy is very different from maybe other times. I don't know if there's always been such trauma, such problems, or we'd consider problems or traumas, but maybe it was just like that in different times. There is no one way of birth. Our birth is our unique, special way of going from oneness with this person to giving life into the universe. Each way is unique and splendid.
How do we know if we need help? How do we know if we need some kind of outside intervention? Because we know that women have given birth, just like the women in Mitzrayim who gave birth before the midwives arrived. We know women have gone through pregnancy and birth by themselves. How do we know if we need to seek outside?
Okay, there's certain really basic things to know that are okay. Your blood pressure, your urine, your emotional well-being. You have an incredible fear that, there was a woman that had 3 babies with me, and her 4th one, she was just panicked the whole time. Trust her. She got to pushing. She had a huge amount of bleeding. There was no diagnosis of placenta previa. She had placenta previa. We got in, baby was delivered, and it was fine. But there was a gut feeling just to trust it. So it would be your general basic blood pressure, urine, the baby's growing, and the mother's gut. What's the mother doing? It's also it's a kavod to be, accepting of ourselves. Certain times we want to just be that goddess woman, pregnant, floating through ethereal life. And we're not. To just allow ourselves to be who we are, to accept that in ourselves. Is that a sign that something's wrong? We don't know. When I gave birth, I felt like I needed somebody who could listen to heart tones, do resuscitation, and diagnose too much bleeding. Those were my basic criteria. I think women can support, a healthy pregnancy mostly has healthy births. Mostly has healthy births. The percentage of birth, we're not time bombs. We have been doing this for generations. What does a healthy birth, is it time related? No. We can sit there and say there are centers of illness called hospitals. That if you feel that you need to go into the center for illness, for a problem, they're there as centers for illness, as centers for not well-being. But have we gotten the reassurance of a well-being? Do we have our well-being? I think as women, we have been really not supported in our inner wisdom. A woman in labor is totally there, is totally focused. Do we know we're okay? Give that woman the support. Yeah, what you're doing is right. It's amazing how women will be when they are just supported. You don't have to do massage, ice and poke and push. And, if she wants, she can ask for anything. She's the holiest thing at that point within a huge radius of where you are. She's doing the most admirable thing of giving birth, of giving new life into the universe.
It sounds like, again, pregnancy is not an illness, like this house of illness in general. And if there's something wrong, the mother will typically have an intuition. I just want to talk, just to kind of close up before we open it up to Q&A, about personal responsibility in birth, if you do choose to birth this way without some kind of external authority telling you what's right and what's wrong. But I want to add, you said one of the things was babies that would be helpful to monitor is baby's growth. And many women feel, or certainly most doctors feel, that the way to monitor growth would be through an ultrasound or a sonogram. So I just want to make it very, very clear that you can measure with measuring tape the fungus. You can also watch as a woman's belly grows larger and larger. And you don't even have to look at her belly. She can tell you by growing out of clothes, because they don't fit her any longer, that the baby's growing. And pro-parenting hack, if you have a child and you want to know if your child's growing, if you need to get them new shoes and new pants and a new shirt, that's a sign that they're growing. And you don't necessarily need to go to a tipat halav or a well baby visit to measure that. But just to end on the topic of personal responsibility, if I'm taking responsibility and I'm just checking in with my body, and maybe I'm taking my blood pressure or not taking my blood pressure unless I have some signs like dizziness, or I teach myself red flags to what might be a blood pressure problem and only take my blood pressure when I'm having a problem and that sort of thing. Same with the urine. I'm only checking my urine if I feel that there might be a problem. And I might be educating myself about, say, different potential problems that could arise in pregnancy, like low iron. And instead of having blood tests checking my iron all the time, I will be looking to myself for signs of exhaustion, tiredness. And if I'm feeling those signs, I would increase my iron intake. And I would see if that made a difference. And then, move on from there if that didn't seem to be working, or seek some other advice. But, and as Gilla touched on, there is a maternal and infant mortality rate in hospitals as well that nobody hears about, and it's astronomical. And much of this is public record. You can go to your local country, look up the mortality rates in hospitals. It does not make front page news when babies are born still, or when babies die, or when mothers die related to birth. But a home birthing mother, or someone who's free birthing or something like that, certainly will make every major news station and will be touted and held up in front of every woman as to why birth is so dangerous, and so on and so forth. So what do we do as women if we're taking personal responsibility? It would seem to reason that we would take personal responsibility for the outcomes as well. Maybe Chava or Gilla can jump in, and then I want to give Carole the last word on that.
Chava, maybe you have something?
I just wanted to call attention with the same topic of responsibility. Just like Carole said, these centers for illness, so many people put their trust into this center for illness, calling it a wellness clinic or whatever. And then they go there and they feel that they're in good hands. But really and truly, Carole said this before, we are a test population. They don't know things, how these little things work, their tests, their sonograms, their ultrasound, until they start using them on us. And that's completely giving them all the responsibility and assuming that they know things, but they don't. They're using us as a test subject. And if you kind of keep that in your mind all the time, you are able to take much more responsibility by stepping away from all of that as much as you feel comfortable, whatever. And saying, I do know my baby, I do know my body, I don't need to be a test subject because the wisdom has come down for generations. It's inside of me. I just need to connect it again because we've so lost it. But just to keep in mind, these centers for illness are using us as guinea pigs in every step along the way, from the sugar, thing and all of their little machines and the pokes and the jabs and all of this. It's us that they're learning from what's good and what's bad, but they never change it. It just continues on the same path. So taking responsibility for me is absolutely stepping away. And I know that things go wrong. And I know that, you know, God has all kinds of plans, but that's part of me making that decision. So it falls into line with the responsibility.
I have something to add quickly, and that is that midwives and midwifery, until modern times, were one of the most esteemed career choices for a woman. A woman who was a midwife in our own Jewish communities a mere 100, 200 years ago were the most esteemed women. They were held in high respect. Rabbis would sometimes bring them in to ask about certain issues. They were the healers of the community, not only in Jewish communities, throughout the Middle East, for example, countries like Turkey, tribes, they would call the midwives to heal for any ailment. No nomad tribe traveled without their midwives. And in Europe, in Ashkenazim, women who were midwives in the Middle Ages actually had written on their gravestone, written in stone, engraved in stone, Isha Chachama Isha Yoledet, meaning wise woman and midwife. Most women did not get titles on their gravestones, but midwives did. So a mere 100 years ago, up until a mere 100 years ago, midwives were celebrated. A community could not function without them. And now they have been relegated to not legal. Who makes up these laws? They're not God-given. They're not universal. They're not from the earth, and they're not from the people. And we need to reclaim them back, like you, Carole. We are so grateful to have you.
Thank you. I think in terms of pregnancy and childbirth, in terms of women, I think a question that we've not addressed is the point where you look at a young couple and you say, you're pregnant, you're having a child, responsibility. What are we willing to, what do you want them to tell you about this baby? You want them to tell you that they're going to graduate with a PhD in philosophy at the age of like 23, 25? Nobody's going to tell you that. Your responsibility starts with you're having your baby. There's a certain amount that you can test, and they keep trying to test and test and test and test. I think each person, their kavod of saying, I accept this person, this new child, to know your child, to know your relationship, to know your partner, to know what's going to go on, is a real kavod. We're not turning that to the mothers, to the families. We're not strengthening, like the honor to strengthen the family, that young couple, to be not his family, not her family, but a unique and new entity that's been blessed with this new soul coming in, and to raise it b'simcha, b'hava, in joy, in love, in inner wisdom. Because even from the beginning, as they turn over everything, if you turn over and say, tell me if I'm okay, they're not going to be there. It's 3 o'clock in the morning when you have a baby who's like, is it something you move on? You need to trust your baby. Do you sit them up? Do you pat them? Do you have them breathe something else? Do you do, like, we need to strengthen these people. Pregnancy and childbirth is not just the nikudah, that little point, that little minute time. It's a really honorable time of growing a woman, a family, a child, a new perspective in the universe. And every time that we do that, we're strengthening our entire Gilla, our entire universe. Lowell started with talking about like whatever's going on. If we strengthen the parents, this mothers, the society, we're developing a new society. There's a greater goal in it. There's much more that, like, it's a macrocosm, not the microcosm. Baruch Hashem.
I think that's an incredible note to open up to the QA on. We can probably stop recording here, Lowell. I know that you're anxious to do that.
Oh, actually, no,
No, you're okay?
You can go on as long as you want. Usually my programs are from 5 to 6 and 7 to 8. Yours, you asked to be from 6 to 7, so I have a lot more leeway. You can take
Great.
as long as you want.
All right.
And you
Well,
can,
we'll continue with the Q&A. Maybe should we stop recording just for the Q&A so that's something more private for everyone?
that's up to you and
Let's
the people.
do that.
You
Yeah.
want to stop? Okay, so we'll
Let's
stop
stop recording.
recording now.